There's I want to go back to the book. We're going to also come back to the biting in a minute because I had another question about that. But that reminds me of, not to keep harping on the lions thing, but it's another great example of every one of the chapters more or less starts with sort of tying back into maybe a lesson or a way in which this adventure sort of impacted you and your team. And the lion one, smelling the lions, about being present, about being in that moment. After you've had that moment with a 400-pound lion, how do you find that moment in regular day-to-day life? That's an extraordinary moment to have that realization.
What's crazy about lions is they're so much bigger than you really think until you see one, and it's such a beautiful animal and in a tranquil state, right? Where it's asleep, it doesn't feel any pain, there's nothing negative happening to the lion. This is a part of its medical process, and it's so big. And when you're next to it, it's like a horse laying down. But the smell of a lion, like, I don't know why I chose to like stick my face into the mane of a lion. I mean, when else are you going to be in the situation to actually smell a lion? But trying, like you said, being present in that moment for me was so important because it's not just what happens in that moment, but it's about the story that you take with you, a moment and a memory that you'll never forget. And when will I ever be in that situation again? Hopefully not on the wrong end of a lion attacking me. It's the last thing I smell. But yeah, it was an unforgettable experience. And to help contribute to the research that the Kayaking Game Reserve was doing was very important for us.
Talking about formative experiences, there's in the beginning of the book, you talk about when you were young, you would kayak on your own. I think it was Middle Bass to North Bass. Am I getting that right? And you used to go out there, and that was kind of like the first time you were exploring and whatnot. What do you remember about the first time you made that trip out to that island on your own?
Pure adventure, right? There are so few places on our planet where you can truly say, all right, I'm getting into a boat and I'm going to row somewhere where I know there are virtually no humans. So most people don't even realize there are islands in Lake Erie, right? So our Great Lakes have a series of islands. The Erie Islands, one of my favorite places to explore. And North Bass Island has given so much to what has become my career. That was one of the first places I did exploring. You've got this snake species that most people have no idea lives on the face of our planet. They can only be found on the Erie Islands. So when you hear Journey to Snake Island, which that chapter's titled, you're like, he must be in some exotic land. No, this is just off the coast of Ohio in Lake Erie.
How old were you the first time you went out and did that? I feel like you said you were a teenager. The first time you went solo and explored.
Yeah, the first time I went out and did this trek, I wasn't quite a teenager. I was just out of college at that point.
You were a little older.
Yeah, a little older. But it's thrilling to set out in a boat and go to an island where you're like, I have no idea what I'm going to find there. Am I ever even going to return? Like, that true sense of adventure is what has driven me to build this career.
Yeah, I was asking about age because I was always curious about like how young you were when you started and how like your parents thought about you going out and just like exploring and seeing that you had this drive to go be out there and see the world. Were they always supportive of this passion? You had your whole, I know you had zoo books, so that they were supporting you at least in that way. Yeah, for sure. So what do they think about as you're getting older and they're like, man, he really loves this?
Very supportive. So I see a lot of a young audience here tonight. Like it's so special for kids to realize that exploration doesn't have to be to a remote island. It doesn't have to be to the Pantanal in Brazil. It can be right in your own backyard. And any adventure for you as an individual is defined by the experience that you're going to have, right? You can go out like you, right? You're going to go out tonight into your backyard maybe and find a toad or a salamander. And that's a memory that you're going to keep with you your entire life. And my job as an educator and somebody who's excited about animals is to encourage the next generation to start in your backyard. And as you get a little bit older and a little more responsible and your parents trust you to go just a little bit further, you'll push that envelope to have your next big adventure.
And you've certainly been on a lot of big adventures. There's another one in here when you had to climb the tree to get the monitor. It's a great story. Sounds like it was really brutal, though, in terms of like you're climbing the tree, he's digging into your arms. And I was reading that, and I was like, have you ever been in the middle of one of those really intense moments and thought, what am I doing? This hurts a lot. This is intense. Is this worth it?
Well, here's the funny thing about the sand monitor and the catch of that lizard. We went to Australia for the first time to track down a monitor lizard. Like I'm obsessed with monitors, right? They're the coolest lizard species that's out there. And we searched for days, and they're so fast. They're so tough to get close to. And when we had spotted this monitor basking within the middle of the road, and it took off, and we chased it and went up a tree, I had virtually no hesitation to say, okay, this lizard's in a spot where if I can get up in that tree, I might be able to catch it. So I just straight went for it. didn't think about it twice, and I knew that if I didn't manage to get this lizard, we didn't have the episode. And the most painful part was definitely coming back down the tree. You can imagine straddling a tree and what that scraping maneuver might be. It was a little rough, but we got the lizard, we got the episode, it turned into a book chapter, and it's one of my greatest animal encounters to date.
And when you're on the other side, there's never any regret. Like it's always worth it, whatever it is in that moment. But because you got the story and you're able to communicate with people more about this lizard and stuff like that, that makes it all worth it for you, right?
Absolutely. I mean, most people say, okay, a monitor lizard, I don't know what that means. You know, is it a Komodo dragon? Is it a thorny devil? Like, what is it? And until you see one of those lizards and you realize how beautiful these animals are, how intelligent they are, it creates a new sort of fascination. And it could be you sitting right here, right? You may not know what a monitor lizard is, or maybe you do, but you may go read this book, read that chapter and say, this is my new favorite animal. And that may inspire you to take a journey or direction in your life that turns you into a field herpetologist, where one day you're going out tracking these animals to collect biometric data to promote conservation. That's what's so important.
We've only talked about a couple. There's so many great stories in this book, and the illustrations in here are really awesome too. Wow, where was the story behind those? Where'd those come from?
My mom.
Your mom did? No.
Yeah, for real. So my mom is an incredible artist. So anybody who's out there that's like, I don't really know if I trust my mom to do these things, I have an amazing relationship with my mom. She's a phenomenal artist, and she did all the interior illustrations for this book. And what's different about the illustrations is, you know, with a book like The King of Sting, which was the last book, we've got a bunch of, you know, great color illustrations. But with a book like Brave Adventures, I feel it's very much about exploring your imagination. We don't want to give you too much. We want to give you the black and white illustrations that you recognize from the episodes, but allow the words on the page to truly lead you on the story.
The whole book, there's even a great little detail around each page that almost looks like an old weathered map, or like you found this old book of stories, and then those sketches just add to that. It's just really cool, and I have no idea that was your mom. That's amazing, dude. That's so cool.
I would say the best thing to do with this book, if you pick up a copy, is to actually take it outside, let it sit out through a rainstorm. Let that thing get absorbed into the environment, and then go break it apart in those pages, because that's what's cool. You're right. I'm glad that you noticed those little details, the weathering around the edges. This is a book to beat up, right? This is not a book to be like, all right, I'm just going to keep it on my shelf and keep it pristine. Take it outside. Take it on an adventure. Throw it in the mud. Let it clunk up with the gunk. And then when you open it up and you start reading it, it becomes even more real.